Welcome to the Building Business Podcast. You're here with Dan and Jay, where we talk all things business, battles, and balance.
Jeff McCloy is a very successful property developer and former builder who has helped shape the property market of Newcastle and the Hunter region. He's a great supporter of charity and good causes, and even served as the Lord Mayor of Newcastle. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Joe.
One of the questions we always like to do at the start is an A or a B, and my question is, a day at the footy or a day on a fishing boat? What would you prefer?
Day on the fishing boat.
Yeah? Because you're a bit of a footy fan previously.
Oh, I still am. Still watch it regularly.
Yeah. But you love your fishing, is that right?
Love it.
Okay. And what's your favourite fish to catch?
To catch coral trout by the handline.
Okay.
Second would be barramundi in a very light line in the river or the creek.
Okay. And are you good at it?
Oh, I don't like to talk about it, good about it. But I tell you,
I was going to say every fish.
I have had a lot of practice.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I've got a son that loves the mahi-mahi, and he's like, Dad, we've got to catch mahi-mahi. And I said, well, we need to gear up and get ready for that because that's a good...
They're out here, you know.
Yeah. Apparently there's killer whales out there at the moment.
Yeah, and they're really good to eat.
Yeah.
Mahi-mahi, fresh mahi-mahi, beautiful.
Okay. Well, hopefully one day I'll find out. Another A or B question is construction, as in building, or development, because you've done both. What do you prefer?
Well, we're in building for a long time. My father had a building company, and we didn't build houses because instead of having one client, which was the client, they had their weekend experts with plumbers, and next thing you know, you're building one house for 27 advisors.
Yeah.
So, and you got to do that 10 or 15 of those in a time, and so we only built commercially.
Yep. Is that because of your skill set or choice? Because you come from a commercial background. That's where you started. And your father, I believe, started the business. He was the founder of Jeff McCloy.
That's correct.
Was it always commercial as well?
Always commercial.
Yeah. And
occasionally for a friend or a special house, we'd do one, but very rarely.
And so therefore you gravitated towards that commercial construction because it was what you always knew, or as you said, it was just because it was easier to you, one client? Well,
because he was commercial and did clubs and hotels and warehouses and all sorts of stuff. I finished university with a civil engineering degree, and then went to Sydney. I was 6 months with Public Works, and man, oh man, you had to fill out all these forms, do this. The bureaucracy in any public organisation it wasn't meant for me. I mean, I couldn't take these rules, and you didn't fill out the blue form and the red form, and get me out of here. And I went to a company called Austin Anderson, or American-based builders, commercial builders, and told them I was an estimator. Well, I wasn't really, but I started the earliest and I finished the latest, and I eventually became one. Simple as you take off and multiply a rate by a number and don't miss anything, and you become an estimator. But they ran short of work, and they had me in the design department designing wheat silos somewhere in the west. And I thought, no, I'm not going to be sitting at a desk designing bridges for the rest of my bloody life. So I moved on to Lend-Lease on the MLC Centre for 2 years. Worked out how to build it in a 4-day cycle. Fundamentally was in charge of all the crane lifts and ran the tower on a daily basis with the 5 foremen. And Mum and Dad tried to get me to come back to the business, and I said, no, we're going to argue. I'm not going to do it. Anyway, eventually Mum said, you've got to do it. All right, I'll give it a try for a year. Anyway, the rest is history.
And what's it like? I mean, you eventually took over your father's business, and your signature project was the John Hunter Hospital. That was the thing that sort of put you on the map. Is that fair to say?
I bought 10% of the business. Mum and Dad did get divorced, and Mum had a percentage, so That gave me 17.5% of the business. My brother's got the same percentage, but I eventually bought them out, so I had a big shareholding in the business. And Dad's previous general manager, Mick Aitken, allegedly retired. We went off to start another business, so I bought his share out, or was absorbed by the company. So I ended up in a fairly short time with a large holding on the business. And we then were doing a lot of package deals for the Department of Housing, where we didn't have the money to buy the block, but we took options on the block and then had the houses designed on them and then put them in what was called a package deal. Mm-hmm. We built thousands of those things, probably 2,000 to 3,000 houses as such for a one-off client, and not my previous statement where we did real houses. We did, but we had one client to deal with. Then
just on that, was that your first exposure to development, if you like?
Yes, probably, because we then ended up having enough money to actually go and buy the land, so we had a foothold on it. Then we'd have the houses designed, so when the package deals come along, we were ready to go. So we knew where they wanted to house people, and we searched those areas and found it. But at the same time, I was, working bloody sometimes 10 o'clock at night. We didn't have an estimator, and I thought, I'm going to wear out. And so we got an estimator, a very good one for years, and then just gradually we kept growing the business. But I was aware of the burnout factor, so I started us doing commercial developments. And first one we owned was Gillstown Shopping Centre, where we bought the land and in conjunction with Richard Owens had the other side where he had his Hueys, and developed that for a cash flow and an income on a steady basis. Mm-hmm. Because the highs and lows and peaks and troughs in the building industry, you've got to be able to manage them. And so we started off then with commercial. Then we bought a few buildings in Hunter Street and gradually build up a commercial portfolio. Then we bought the Telstra site and built the Telstra building, which is a great backup for the whole company to pay for overheads and all sorts of things. And it fundamentally paid for itself. I'm a non-debt person generally, but we did borrow substantially for that, but we had a totally regular income. I knew the income could cover it. We had a beautiful clause which gave an increase in rent per year, and on the building that size, it was substantial money, which made a major contribution, in my mind, always defensive about overheads and covering your costs.
You glossed over that pretty quickly, and I guess there's the reason why I want to dig deeper is because there's a lot of builders out there now who go, I don't want to deal with clients. I just want to be the developer and I want to be my own client. I mean, you did enough client work and you did thousands of houses, like you said, but you were able to build a healthy balance sheet and enough money in the business, I'm assuming, to then eventually buy your own land, like you said. But cash was important. It was important to build up a kitty and not rob the business of its cash flow.
Absolutely.
Because we see that a lot.
A lot of builders make the mistake, or business people make the mistake by, when they get a big progress claim comes in, they haven't paid all their bills yet, and they think it's theirs. Mm. So they go out and buy bloody cars and boats and all sorts of stuff with other people's money. Mm. Always have to be conscious of it's other people's money. So you pay your wages of your staff first, your smallest subbies second, the bigger subbies third, the little suppliers fourth, and the big suppliers last. And there's anything left over, you leave it in the bank and pay yourself a little bit to eat.
Mm. And then recycle and go again.
And recycle. And if you drag money out of the business, you're only robbing yourself long term. Mm. I've taken very few dividends over all those years.
Mm. It's a really good point, because I often say that, stop robbing the thing which eventually will become your cash cow. And you use the example where you want it to develop a passive income that eventually, covers your overheads. So therefore, you can use that cash eventually to throw into developments. I'm assuming, is that right?
Yeah. And at the same time, in very early days, I think while we were building Geelstown Shopping Centre, I saw an opportunity for a little subdivision. I think there was 14 blocks at Belmont North. I bought them myself with help from my dad and developed these 14 lots and sold it. And I think even in those days, we made $500,000 in 6 months. And I said to myself, how long's this been going on? I better have another look at this. Not that actual stuff called money is all that important, but if you don't have it, you go, Bray, you do a lot of damage to a lot of people. So that's when we started on subdivisions, and that way you would only ever pay cash for the land. We would never borrow, simply because getting approvals, even way back then, was a nightmare. And if you couldn't stand a fight on something because you got a bank hanging over your head, you got a problem.
And this is the thing, when in an ideal world, a lot of developers will borrow a lot of money, and timing usually gets delayed, and therefore interest and cash flow and all the other things come into effect. And usually they crash and burn or have to fire sale the thing and run a big loss or burn a lot of bridges. How?
Well, they actually filed on demands of either council or any of these ridiculous rules that are in place, and have to give away a ridiculous amount of things or costs because they can't afford to have the fight. If you think it's right and you think it's the right thing to do, and the power is being abused, take them on.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't have the cash to do that.
No, they don't. But public companies don't do it either because they're afraid of the publicity. So the woke board just sits there and says, "Oh no, we can't take the council to court, or we can't take the New South Wales government to court." Well, of course you can.
Yep, especially if you're right.
If you're right,
yeah.
Don't chase a stupid cause.
You've done a fair few developments, and you talked about the 14-lot subdivision. Were you ever at a point where you bit off more than you could chew in a development?
Yeah.
What happened? What's an example of that?
Well, a big example of that is we finished the John Hunter Hospital. It was very successful financially. Thought, God, if we can build this, we can build anything. In the 30s, full of horsepower.
Yeah. The ego was up.
All that stupid crap you go through in those days. So I thought we'll start in Sydney. So I opened an office down there, hired all these new people, didn't understand our culture. They won 4 jobs in a row. Man, oh man, didn't I get kicked. And I had one stage I just got in my car, went down there for a week, stayed in a hotel, ran around all the jobs. Every night time I'd be back in the office, and we lost millions upon millions. And
why was that? What do you put it down to? Was it the estimating? Was it the lack of trades?
A few things. One was a team of people that didn't understand our culture. I was trying to operate it from here on an up and down basis. 2, they won 4 jobs which were substantially under cost. 3, the senior management wasn't that smart. 4, the estimator made some huge errors, like the car park in one job. You used the wrong scale, so he only priced half the car park, and the car park was twice as big.
Wow.
And that sort of unprofessionalism went on because they just signed these blasted jobs up. If I'd have brought my estimator down from Newcastle to go through it, and it'd have been a different story. And I found some tough clients. We survived it somehow. I went back to Newcastle. I shut Sydney down. took them through the courts. After 3 years, did eventually get most of it back because we were right. But that one period where I thought, well, I'm going to have to close this building down, because what I did do is not keep too much capital in the building business, because I knew if you make a mistake, it's all over, and that brings everything down. So I kept the building company with minimal capital because of a mistake or a rogue client or whatever reason else happens in the industry.
These days, we've got a good and nasty thing in home warranty insurance, which you can't just run off low levels of cash, and you can't just shut it down in a hurry, or you lose your builder's license for 5 years or your ability to trade for 5 years.
Well, it's a nightmare, and it's part of the reason for housing unaffordability, and builders who continue on that vein to be very wary. You've almost got to guarantee sinks and tubs and stuff for their lifetime, where the own manufacturer won't do it. I mean, it's gone way, way too far. In the old days, you got jobs on your reputation, and if there was a defect, you'd go back and fix it. Now it's been used by some of the public and their claims in an unjust and unfair way. But that's backed up by government. Hence, as a builder, you're wary. There's a big claim now on against Triggerboff on a project where via the government, I think they're into him for $105 million, which is more than the building was worth. Who would want to be in the blasted industry when you've got those swords hanging over your head? So legislation has assisted greatly in the cost of housing going up. Pretty simple stuff. There are a lot of other reasons for it, but the biggest one being land and the cost of land. And I was in Las Vegas last year with the Tim Zoo fighter. We had a driver, my brothers, and he'd take us round to Las Vegas, and you could buy a block of land there, fully serviced for $60,000 US. You buy a really good one for $100,000 US. You go to Texas and buy an acre block to build a house for $100,000. We got 27 million people. They got 350 million people in an area not that much bigger than us. Why? Our taxes alone to start with would be over about $120,000 a lot before you start.
Wow.
Then you get the biodiversity offsets, which is a nightmare on steroids. This whole inquiry into cost of housing is they get it wrong. It's simply they've cut off the supply. The first thing you learn in economics is a supply and demand curve, and when the arrow goes like that, but the green element is so strong everywhere. They all think they're doing the right thing by the environment, and yet they're crucifying the average Australian person. No one would realise, but the area of Sydney and Newcastle and Wollongong and all the towns occupy 2.5% of the area of the state. 2.5%. And they talk about overdevelopment. We have more national parks than any other country in the world, both in number and in size.
Wow.
I have a paper on that I wrote once, that the statistics are just, no one's looking at the big picture. They're looking at the miniature of, feel good about ourselves because we've saved a tree or we've saved one tree. We go through hell over one tree. On an area which is to be developed, we've got to, every 10 metres, we've got to send people through 4 times a year to find any endangered species they could possibly find from a, we'll be studying bloody worms soon. Right? So, and if you find one, then there's a clause that says, well, avoid. So avoid means you can't do anything. So you've got zoned land like at Kings Hill in here at Port Stephens. 24 years ago, it was rezoned residential for 5,500 houses. Today, not one house has been built. Huh?
Wow.
Not one.
No one.
But the planners will still have it in their system as 5,500 houses, so that then they've met their statutory requirement by having available this land which is residential. No one studies this stuff.
Yeah.
Because when they colour it pink, the planners, they think that that's in the numbers it's going to be residential. Have you ever tried to amalgamate 10 owners to do a subdivision? Huh?
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
But that's pink, so therefore it's going to be residential. There's one in the middle which won't move. The one in the middle is the one that needs the roundabout.
Wow. You talked about supply and demand. It's huge. It has an effect on everything, and I'm glad you mentioned it because it's basic economics. If there's a greater demand than there is supply, prices are going to go through the roof.
Absolutely.
So if we supply more and the red tape and all the the issues that's going on, in theory, the price should come down. So you've probably had this conversation 1,000 times. How do you overcome these challenges you just spoke about?
Well, I'll be quite honest. I worked them massively to our favour. When you purchase a block of land or a large area, anyone else in the area that works that out in terms of how many lots you get out of it. It becomes the base. When it becomes the base, the other person is not going to sell it for less than what becomes the base.
Mm.
But if there's a lot more land zoned, which there isn't, the base will be flexible because someone will move on that and you'll get much cheaper land. But because it gets worse and worse every year, if we buy a large lot, say 1,000 lots, you work your base out to give you, say, a 20% return because we only pay cash for the land, as I've said. B, you do the feasibilities about the sewer or the pump station or the power and everything else. And C, you then look at your return year one. But your return in year one at Greenpoint, for example, I started selling there at 80,000 a lot.
How long ago was this?
Greenpoint, 25 years ago.
Okay.
I finished selling there at 350,000 a lot. Terrell, and I can go through all our projects.
Well, yeah, you're right. Terrell, Billy's Lookout, it started very cheap, and now it is $800,000 a lot or something.
Just sold a block for 800,000.
Yeah. Good old Terrell, Yeah.
Well, once again, if you do it right and you do a beautiful job and you make it, we design subdivisions for the woman because she decides where they're going to live and the kids are going to grow up. So you have the beautiful entry statements, the beautiful gardens, the public art, the flowers, and the swings and all the things which make a family.
Mm.
So that's why we say we build communities. We don't build subdivisions.
Yeah, I've noticed that with your estates. They are very visually appealing. And Billy's Lookout was a great example of that because it's surrounded by nature. It had the beautiful parks and all the great layout, and it just didn't look like overdeveloped land development.
Well, we do that deliberately, but other developers then, when they're looking at it, they see those things as a cost. I see them as an investment.
Mm.
A total different philosophy.
If you overdeveloped that site and got rid of, the subtle design and, acceptance of areas that you could have filled with another site and there's nature that you left there, how much difference do you think the price of the because now here's a tricky one. You want to make as much money as you can out of a block, I'm assuming, as a developer.
Well, yeah, because you meet, in our case, we meet the market. And we want to be in a position in the different areas where we can undercut the market and still sell and turn over because we haven't paid too much. And the essence in real estate is never paying too much. You don't make a profit when you sell. You make the profit when you buy.
That's a good point. And so just on that, do you buy a site based on its location or based on its value and then you make it work?
Location is important. If we're out of town and we're in another town, I drive down the main street and look how well the main street is, look if there's parking, look if there's empty shops, look if the streets are clean. And so, visualise the culture of the town first. That looks all right. You go and investigate then the site, and we move from there. But the just back on building for a second, what builders tend not to do is to read the tarot cards of when things are going to be tight or not tight. And what a lot of them did got locked into fixed price contracts in a booming market without seeing it booming, and then the COVID hit, and then the supply costs went through the roof, and they didn't gear quickly enough for it, or they signed up too many houses, thinking and not reading the tea leaves. And reading the tea leaves of the future is always very important, and having what I call always have a back door or a way out if you run into strife. But I don't read balance sheets hardly ever. But our whole company is geared on cash flow. Every project, every is recorded against each job. The forecast cash flow on each project per month, the number of lots sold per month. We extrapolate over that. We're going to do that because we've got a huge pipeline. We're looking at outside this, outside. We look at 10 years. I'm predicting the cash movements for 10 years on the stock we already have now. And when you do that, you'll find, in year 3 we've got a bit of a hole. Okay, that's caused by what? Yeah, how do we adjust? So we're adjusting now for something 3 years ago.
And just on that, as a developer looking ahead, year 3, let's say there's a cash flow issue, do you sell more because then supply and demand gets thrown out a little bit, or do you choose to offset that through some other form of development, or what do you do?
Well, you sell more, or the business really has lots of levers. You can delay some projects starting, and that has an effect on your cash flow. If you blindly went into it and just started everything because you've got it, you're going to more than likely run out of dough. Because of this big settlement I've just had, we are back calmly in the hands of banks on some project, but only gently. We again show them the cash flow, and then you got to back that up with your rate of sales and talk to them all the time, and so that they know you know what you're doing, and they're comfortable with where you're headed and what project you're up to. We've got that massive site at Curry, and the upfront costs up there are just horrendous, just for the residential. The entry roundabout is $30 million on its own before you get to the first block. Right? So you've got to eat that. Then all the power lines come through, and you've got to move them, and then you've got to have a sewage pump station. You your upfront costs are $50 million.
Wow.
That goes on actually to the price of the blasted land,
Yeah.
but the project's big enough and your cash flow is strong enough, you can weather that. But so long as you know and you've done your homework.
There's, I mean, just on that, you talk about, housing affordability, and we need more supply. I'm a big fan of motivate the private sector, motivate the investor, motivate the developer, because they will achieve way more than the government will, because they just doers. The government have to jump through all these hoops and all these different things and satisfy every single person. What do you think of that?
They can't do it. You know, Newcastle Council, for example, just put another $20,000 levy on every block and every unit, because they're going to get into affordable housing. What a joke.
Yeah.
That's an absolute joke. So all they're doing is raising the cost of housing for everyone for $20,000. Now, for young people with a family, I use a statement that only endangered species in Australia is a husband and wife with 2 kids who can afford a block of bloody land or a house. They're the endangered species. But we've made it that way. You only got to compare what I said about America and Australia. So they tax everything, but how in the hell do they think that where's the team of people to be able to do it? They can't even build an art gallery with it going through the roof. They can't even change offices without $8 million going to $27 million or whatever. I mean, they're useless. But they think they're going to do affordable housing. They got no chance. The government, by throwing money at housing and saying they're going to do it, it won't. They're paying more.
Let's talk about that. But one last question on development. Let's say you're a builder turning over, 5 or 6 homes a year. You're doing your renovations, extensions, or new builds, and that builder wants to get into developing for the first time. What's your 1, 2, or 3 bits of advice you'd give that builder that's not large but wants to have a crack? Do they start, with dual locks? Do they start by teaming up? Do they borrow money? Do they save money? What's just that tip for that individual?
Well, there's a few things to do. You start small, as a builder of that size would be. Find a way to buy the worst house in the best street and renovate it. But when you renovate it, you must do it with style. You must get the colours right. You must get the tiling right. You can't just let your grandmother or your sister's husband or someone choose this. You must use professionals. So when you walk into the place when it's finished, it's appealable to everybody's eye. So you do one of those things and you do it well, but you've got to buy it right. But then with your contacts and your tradespeople and your own staff, if you do then a very good job watching what the market is, sell it, pay your tax, move on, do another one. Alternatively, buy a spec block of land and build one with a great design in a market that's going to increase because of supply. So understanding the supply side of things and what will always sell is very important. But you can start that way. You can get enough funds to maybe joint venture with the landowner, saying that you hold the land at this agreed price, I'll build a house on it, then we'll split the profits. You have to be really quite innovative in being able to get that kickstart.
And the good part about that is you don't have to always fork out overs and borrow up your eyeballs to be able to achieve a development. You're able to leverage someone else's land, which you don't have to carry the costs, and then you'd apply your skills as a builder and say, hey, I can cover the build at your cost or whatever it may be.
We do a lot of joint ventures with landowners because they might have their land for sale at X amount of dollars, If you've got to pay that X amount of dollars up front, it limits the capital of what you can do. But you go and do the feasibilities and say to them, look, if you sell it, you'll get this dollars. If you joint venture with us, we'll give you another 40%. Here's our track record. Ring all these people. One example of that was a particular site in Lake Macquarie that we joint ventured with, and we'd agreed price per block that they'd get, per say, whatever it would have been. Anyway, the project goes on for years, and that's the beauty of these things. The price keeps going up. And I started to look at the numbers with our guys and said, oh, this is becoming a bit embarrassing for us. We're making too much money on these lots.
Yeah.
So better get the owners in and give them a check for another $1 million. So they did. But a couple of years later, it still was happening, so I better bring them in again and give them another $1 million on top of what we agreed to pay them. Now, I just saw that as being fair, but also building a reputation of being fair. And because the market was going up so crazily, we could afford properly to pay more for the land because of the job we did in the first place with the entry statements and the parks and everything else that we do. The location, because it was in great demand area, and that's another way. But joint ventures are very on the cards, but you've got to build that track record up slowly.
That's a good point. And we talked about councils and, hurdles and whatnot, and I think at some point you'd had enough and you said, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for, to assist Newcastle. That was the motivation. I think you even said, I'll step away from all my developments and step away from business to help make a difference, and eventually became Lord Mayor of Newcastle. What were you thinking?
I was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's off to you for taking it on.
I drive down the main city and I looked at it and I'd shake my head and I thought, there was graffiti everywhere. We had it off. We had the graffiti off the whole of the city. Drive in there now and it's just covered in it again. Why? Because they're so useless and lazy. They don't know how to do things. So we got the graffiti off. We got the standards starting to lift. We started that Ocean Walk, which we had the beautiful walk, and because we had enough funds to do it. It was the first meeting I had at council. We'd been briefed by the senior staff, the accounting staff, was, we're going to run out of money in 2 years. I said, what? I inherited a nightmare. The cash flow on that was showed that the bloody place was going to run out of cash within 2 years.
As in Newcastle Council?
Newcastle Council.
Yeah, wow. At
the same night, they're voting to build an art gallery with no money.
I remember that, yeah.
And it's the same night.
Yeah.
And I'm in shock. So I was fortunate enough to find a general manager called Ken Goldthorpe, hired him. We got into it straight away. He was really easy to do with, understood it. We had far too many staff. He analysed all those staff, where they were, what was totally necessary, wasn't. I think we had to put off about 200 people, which we did. We had a meeting at Newcastle's sports ground where the staff were all in the sheds, and Ken and I stood in front of them, told them what had to be. Raising the rates would have been cruel at that stage, so we left the rates and we trimmed it down. My goal was to get, we trimmed it to 900 and a bit. My goal was to outsource like I do in my business and get it to 600. I firmly believe you can run that so efficiently with 600 people. I think they've got now 1,400.
Wow.
Well, Labor gets in, not being too political, but then they want to employ people. They go and talk to the unions, and all of a sudden they think they can do it themselves. and therefore you get the massive rate rises that Newcastle's suffered over the last few years. Massive rate rises. And what's the output? No one measures it.
Yeah.
We measured every department with balance sheets, so everyone became accustomed to understand in each department the balance sheet and the cash flow, and they were all reported to it. Good people don't mind reporting for an outcome. It's the wrong staff that don't want any reporting because there's accountability.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone has to be accountable.
Totally agree. Yeah.
For their productivity, for their own job, for their own work. The biggest factor facing Australia at the moment is lack of productivity. Does anyone know? Huh.
And do you think the excess amount of people is laziness and lack of productivity, so they just throw numbers at it? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That's a short version of what it is, and therefore your no accountability means, well, no one's going to know.
Well, you got to get your hands dirty, I think, and so I'd go around. I'll give you one example. On the beach for when they were having a big surf carnival, was televised all around the world. The manager of that surf carnival, from council's point of view, rang me and said, "Jeff, the weeds all over the beach. We've had this massive rust in the beach. We're going around the world, and the beach looks like a pigsty." I said, "Well, use our cleaner, and the cleaner's broke." Who have you rang? They said, we rang someone, and what was the answer? The next tide's going to take it away. Go and look up the tide chart, and next tide's not going to take it away at all. Right. The tide's going to get worse in terms of leaving stuff on the beach. So our sweeping machine's broken down. The tide isn't going to take it away. Ring up Lake Macquarie and tell them and borrow it. I'll do that if you want. Ring up Lake Macquarie Council. They were fantastic. They lent us for 2 days this machine, come in, cleaned it up, and job's right. Why shouldn't there be that cooperation? But if you keep thinking inside the square, and you don't think outside the square, the beach still would have been filthy.
Good point. You were known for somebody to get things done. The thing that everyone talks about is, the payments and making things happen. Tell us about that, because I don't know the story in detail where, they talked about developers contributing money towards, other members. And what was the story there?
Well, I looked at Newcastle and looked for 100 years without being political as under Labor. So that's federally, state and council. So federally, when Liberals get in, or state when Labor gets in, none of them will spend money in Newcastle. Of course, that's not a swinging seat. It's always going to be Labor. That is pretty dumb-ass, if you ask me, because then when Liberals get in, they won't spend in Newcastle because it's Labor. When Labor gets in, it doesn't spend in Newcastle because it doesn't have to. It'll spend where it can change votes. Now, if you continue on as they've continued on for a century and the penny hasn't dropped, I love Newcastle people, but they're not too smart when it comes to politics and making our regions get their share of money. The massive income going from the Port of Newcastle to the state, from the power stations, from coal, from the Hunter Valley and the winery, etc., ends up in Sydney. Look at the cost of roads in Sydney, those billions spent on rail lines, and look at that entryway into North Sydney. That road cost is, billions of dollars. If the regions expanded, look at the cost of the roads in the regions. Nothing comparison. So, but because of politics, it gets spent our money, quite frankly, in Sydney. And no one's saying anything. Have you ever heard the local members jump up and down about anything? I haven't.
Because they don't have to, do they? Huh? And so, if you don't mind, the brown paper bag thing, the media thing, what was that?
Well, firstly, there was never ever a brown paper bag. And that's Watson from ICAC, and his mob purificated that to see if to show that there's some sort of bribery involved in any donation I made. I've been making donations all my life and never expected anything back on any level and never asked for anything on any level. You do it because you think that, A, you're asked for it in the main, and I get asked all the time for this stuff called money every week of my life. And the Liberal guys asked me or came to see me, and my girls staff go to the bank and get cash out for me regularly, always have and always will. Everything I do goes through my office. I have no private email, all my emails, all text, everything. The only privacy I really have is when I take some cash and spend it on a new fishing rod or a nice glass of wine or something. So I treasure my privacy, so I've always carry or have substantial cash. So they come to me for some money, and I donate it. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, I think. Yeah. And there comes an inquiry and then phone tapping and all that sort of stuff. And I said, well, I've been summoned to the court. I'm just going to tell the truth. So I told the truth. So I told him. And then he asked me, what projects have you got in Swansea? None. So why would you donate to? Because he asked me, and I thought he'd do a good job. Oh. How many projects you got in Charlestown? None. Why did you go to Charlestown? Same story. Look what's happened there. How many projects you got in Port Stephens? None. Right? So here's all the 3 or 4 people I donated to. Why haven't you rung the member for Charlestown? What am I going to ring him about? Oh, I did ring him. I was there at the time, and a medium strip going into Charlestown had all these weeds in it, like about this high. It was unbelievable. I said to him, hey, mate, I drive into town every day from Belmont, and you've got these horrible weeds in the middle of the bloody medium strip. You know anyone can take those weeds out.
And that was it. That was the one phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, they didn't understand the system. I said, how can a backbencher in the state government assist me with a development application and any of the local councils? If I've got a problem with a developer application, is he going to ring up the mayor or the Greens or whoever's going to and say, oh, mate, my old mate Jeff McCloy, he's got a problem with that, going to give him approval? Huh?
Doesn't work that way, does it?
It doesn't work that way. So I had an organisation chart about all the approval process, what you go through. And you tell me how a backbencher in the state government is going to have any assistance in any road blockage we've got in that road yard. You tell me. He can't. So the whole concept of a state government backbencher fundamentally being able to assist anybody in the development application is just sheer nonsense. So then I gave them all my development applications for the past 15 years. I said, here they all are. Here's what here's what was approved under delegated authority. Here's what went to full council. So don't waste your time on the others, but go and investigate all those ones that went to full council.
And they still didn't accept it in the end, did they? The media, anyway.
Oh, no, once you start something like a brown paper bag, no. Well, that stuff just sticks, but what are the facts? I said to my lawyers at one stage one day, tell these, well, use the word, to charge me with something so I can get into a proper court.
Yeah.
Not this bloody horrible experience in this it was just a awful experience. But, then I met some great people through it, like Margaret Caneen, who've become very good friends at Bray, who took them on, Alan Jones and a few others. And that's the positives that come out of it. But once mud sticks like that, but why didn't they charge me with anything? Because they didn't ask for anything. I didn't want anything. I wanted a better state.
Yeah.
I wanted a better things for Newcastle. And for all the reasons I previously just spoken about.
And just on that, you are a generous person. You hear those stories where, it sounded like you donated money for personal gain, but really, you mentioned people ask you all the time for donations. You do support, Mark Hughes foundations and different places like that, as well as I know you've combined with McDonald Jones Homes and donated the whole block of land towards that for, I think it's cancer.
Kids cancer, yeah.
Kids cancer, that's right. But what's your goal there? Is it more that's your heart, or you just want to, support people when they're in need? What's your vision there?
Oh, they're all different reasons. For example, out there at Taraba, which we spoke about, we've just donated 2 blocks of land for to build safe houses for battered wives and children. And I think it's under construction out there at the moment. It's a terrible thing that happens in our society. If we can tilt with $1.5 million worth of blasted land to get that fund started, because they can't get started unless they give the land, we donate the land for good causes. But I like to see it in a physical outcome. That is a physical outcome. We have given money to other organisations in the past and ended up just paying wages and going nowhere. So we concentrate now on being able to create physical things which actually happen rather than just pay wages.
We talk about on this podcast business, battles and balance, as in work-life balance, but battles, what's some of the battles along the way?
Oh, yeah. That's the beauty. So that Green Point, if you go back and research that, there was a year and almost daily in the paper. We bought that land, and my goodness, when there's some fights there. So it was zone rural. And we said, there's got to be a deal there for this to be a residential. There's squatters on there. We had to get rid of the squatters or get them off there, so we were very fair with that. We owed them nothing, but we paid them to help them relocate and that sort of stuff. It was supposed to be a wonderful woodland and what do they call it, a rainforest. Well, so we got an expert over to look at that and said, this is not a rainforest. It can't possibly be classified as a rainforest. There are 2 species that actually live in rainforests that are in there, but it's certainly not a rainforest, as the media is saying. The media then, they took a stick to me for 6 months, but I'm a pretty tough old coot, and I took it. But one of the media at one stage wrote something was just totally untrue. So I just rang him. I said, hey, mate, I can't remember who it was, but you better come out here for a drive, and I'll drive you through this place. Because if you write like that again, I'm going to sue the hell out of you in the newspaper.
Yep.
Now, I'll show you the truth. Go and have a look at it yourself, and then you tell me. So it had the two gravel quarries, one active and one on the headland, which is abandoned. The rest of the stuff around the flat was a coal mine and had tailings, and the rest of the stuff was scraggy, covered in lantana, bitter bush, you name it. Every blasted very dangerous species here. All naughty grasses. So he said, "Oh, now I understand where you come from." I said, "Of course, I'm happy to do it. A dirt with part of it to go for a park, but as long as we got some for development." The key being there, we bought it really well. But we went away on a fishing trip with Dad and my boys, and I took all the files on everything that I could find on the site. All the council records, the previous owner, Les Savage records, all the letters, and I just sat there every night. So I went through every page. And then I'd have a highlight pen and a notepad, and I'd write all this stuff down. And end of the trip, I said to my father, "Pop, we're going to buy Green Point." "Yeah, okay, right." "And here's the reason." "Yeah, okay, right." Went to work after the trip, and he comes back and he sat in front of me as he used to do with his cigarette, and he said, "Oh, son, we don't need the money, we don't need the publicity, wouldn't be buying it." I said, "Mate, we've got to do this thing." And he got up, come up to the desk, "Best of luck, mate." That was it.
Good luck. You're on your own on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
But we found out an article where the Department of Planning had it marked for residential, proposal to be pink. In those days, you had the rules: the highest and best use, you should be paid if they rezone. So I had a quick look at that, and I thought, wow, this will be a bit of fun.
Mm.
And then we had the soil samples done. We then moved, or fenced it. We moved in a herd of goats because it was
Clear
rural.
out the lantana.
It was rural, and eat the lantana. Then old mate Livingston from Ringle Valley had a chook farm, so I had a chook farm designed with a DA to put the chook farm in the middle. We did the smell tests and everything.
And, I mean, one thing I've realised is your work ethic is next level. And there's a lot of people that can be smart or can have great fortune or money behind them or whatever it may be, but if they lack work ethic, typically they don't succeed. Would you agree?
Yes. You can get lucky. You can get lucky in those tech things sometimes where they can have this incredibly intellectual, great idea which gets spread worldwide, and then because of their brain, they can get dumped one hell of a load of money. When that happens, there's always danger bells. When that happens, simply because then what do you do with it, and how have you earned it, and has that happened over a number of years, or you've just got it dumped upon yourself? So, because I think we had a young Packer say the other day, "Well, what do you think about all this money you got?" He said, "Well, I'd rather be unhappy with it than unhappy without it." And that wasn't a bad answer.
Yeah, I like it. Who was that? Packer, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. No, I think for me, you know, the view of the token media beat up of developers, money hungry, greedy people who rob from the world. Well, I'm hearing the opposite as a developer, that you've only ever factored in people, you've worked hard, and you've contributed with a greater cause and honesty. From what I'm hearing.
Well, everyone has to meet the market, because in property it's a long held thing, particularly in Australia where we have so much land and the government has tied it up. a lot of people in the cities and everywhere make money out of property simply because in the mainstream the supply has been cut off. If the government's opened up that supply, which is everywhere, developers would make less money. But look at all the developers that go broke.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it?
Well, try it on if you want.
Yeah.
It takes years and years and years of your staff to understand the rules. It takes years and years of culture, and the rules are still changing all the time, but you've got to be up with that. You think you can walk in and just buy a block of dirt and all of a sudden become a developer? Well,
good luck.
You better get a practice in first, and good luck.
We'll have a lot of cash. Just to finish off, you're in my view, hearing what you're saying, you've got a beautiful mind and work ethic. What's your outlet? What's the thing that you go, hey, I'm going to switch off, and do you even switch off?
Oh, probably not. No, but that's fun.
You enjoy what you do.
Yeah, it's fun, and just to plan. I even plan what I'm having for bloody breakfast or lunch in 2 days' time, and how I'm going to go about it. Or if I get up in the morning, how should I dress? Who am I seeing? One thing I did in the past was sometimes I'd get dressed 3 times in the day. We up early in the morning, I'd have a pair of jeans on, a T-shirt, and I'd go to the site and see the boys working. And sometimes on the side, hey, Freddie, why are you putting that dirt trench on that side, not on that side? What are you doing, mate? Oh, I'm digging a hole. No, you're not digging a hole. You're building a building, you're laying a foundation. But if you put it on that side, when we build the wall, we don't have to then move it for us. Oh, that's a good idea, Jeff. Right up, let's go and do that. So then you've got to go and see someone in council. You've got to go home and get changed and put a jacket on and show them the respect. And then of an evening you got to go and go and get your bloody suit on. So at times, for years, I was changing 2 or 3 times a day to show respect to whoever I was dealing with.
And, another outlet, you enjoy what you do, but an outlet, you're a hunter? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a hunter, mainly wild pigs, who just destroy so much of Australia. So I do a lot of that. I've got these electric cars, which run silently I drive around the properties which we own and get rid of the vermin and fishermen. Both the days at sea are limited now, but in the rivers it's where we've got with some mates an old barramundi lodge which we've been doing up for years, which is in now great shape. Hopefully I'll be there in a fortnight catching a few barra. I've got this skin cancers cut out of a blasted hand, but it'll be right by then, I'm pretty sure. Just in case.
What was it?
It's not. I've got an electric reel when we troll, so we got back up.
Barramundi or the coral trout on the hand line, wasn't it? Jeff, you've been a pleasure to speak with. You're an amazing person. You've touched a lot of things and a lot of people over your journey. Thanks for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks for joining us today for the Building Business Podcast. There are more episodes on the way. And if you ever need help, get in touch with C Business Solutions.